Yo, you did it? Maybe? Okay. Should I ping everyone? Or not everyone, but I'll do the at updates. Yep, number two. How do you figure out? Holy crap. Incredible. 24. Great show. Need to figure out how to turn off these freaking. Oh no. Okay. Hi, everybody. Is anyone recording this? Incredible. Okay. So let's get this ready to go. As you can tell, I'm even more prepared than last time. We want to share, I think we want to share the window. That's what we're going to do. The window. Oh, we're doing so good. Okay, can everyone see this? I love the internet. Incredible. We're going to do this stupid Zoom thing again that is really not how you should Zoom these things, but we're going to do it anyway. Yeah. God, we're cool. Yeah. Okay. Well, hi, everybody. So this is Yap number 2. We got a pretty good crowd here. And so the first Yap session was about how do you turn readers into editors, and you can go watch that if you, for some reason, haven't seen it. Yap number 2 is about a topic that is just about equally important to me, which is how do you figure out what your readers actually want? And so we're just going to get into it with a hot take from me. So this is hot take alert, and you can tell from the emojis that I wrote this. I think the primary purpose of a wiki is to be a great resource for people reading it. And there's an asterisk at the end because this is not a universally held view, but I honestly think it should be. I think people have a lot of different ideas of what a wiki is for, um, and they end up with all sorts of different sort of policy ideas and goals for what the wiki should be. And they can get really confused, I think, about the fact that when you really zoom out far enough, the point of a wiki, the point of any of these help sites that we're making is to make something that is really good for the people reading it. And I'm gonna honestly, for now at least, continue on the assumption that you generally agree with this, and if not, let's discuss it afterwards. But if you do agree with this, there's an obvious corollary, which is that you really should be basing your priorities and your policies around this, around maximizing what's best for readers. And that's all well and good, but how do you actually figure out what's good for your readers? And there's a pithy answer, which is you should measure it. If you're not sure how to make a decision, if you're trying to figure out, let's say, what to call a set of pages, whether you should have a policy that allows this sort of thing or not allow this thing, if you're not sure how to make a decision, try and figure out what data that might exist out in the world would be useful to measure this, and then go find it or create it or create a harness to measure it. Whatever your thing is, go and find it. And I wanna give some specific examples of what we do to measure stuff on on uh, on RuneScape and kind of weird Gloop more widely. And I'm just going to kind of go through these because all of these you can imagine they're essentially like information about reader behavior that should help you figure out what you should be prioritizing and how to sort of organize your wiki in a way that gives you that data. So the first one I'm going to show is special analytics. And special analytics, I hope you guys can see this, is it's essentially just like a tracking of. I mean, it's basically what you'd expect it to be. It's the pages that get the most views, and you can kind of look at that to determine any number of things. So we could figure out how many pages has Weird Gloop gotten in the last 30 days. And it's like, okay, this is actually pretty fun. I wasn't expecting this to be nearly as interesting. So this is Weird Gloop. On any given day, it's probably getting like 30 or 40 views. And there was one day um, on May 15th where it got like 950. And I actually know what this is from. There was a YouTuber who was trying to complete some RuneScape quests without using guides and accidentally made Weird Gloop, and to my knowledge was the first person to make it without prior awareness of it since me, like 15 years ago. Anyway, that's not necessarily going to give you an idea of how to organize your information, but I'll give you an example of something that is maybe a bit better. Let's say you have two pages. You have a page for this thing called Shiloh Village, which if you know from old school RuneScape, it's both the name of a quest and it's the name of a city that you unlock after you complete the quest. And sort of a classic question you might ask is, which of these should have the parentheses and which shouldn't? I'm sure across all of your wikis, there's a variety of examples of this where you're trying to figure out, should this thing be a disambiguation? Should it not? And I don't actually know offhand what the ratio here is, but if we look at the quest here, it's averaging 700 views a day, and the uh, the location is averaging. Let's so we're this is you may notice that the old school RuneScape wiki is clearly in terminal decline over the last month, and there is actually a good reason for this. There was a limited time game mode that sort of makes some of the numbers be a little bit crazy. But what you can see here is that on sort of an average day, which is kind of more where we're at here, it's looking at something like 300 to 400. Uh, yeah, so someone asks like namespace versus parentheses. This is maybe I feel like this isn't the sort of thing you would use a namespace for necessarily. It's more if it was like a different game or something that would make sense, but you wouldn't really have, like quest colon Shiloh Village or something, most likely. But yeah, special analytics, kind of great. Can help you figure out what matters and what people are actually using on the wiki, and that's pretty fun. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about. The second thing I wanted to talk about is Google Search Console, and some of you may be aware of. Let's make sure I'm not going anywhere I shouldn't. We're gonna stick with this one. Can everyone see this? Yeah. So this is Google Search Console, which some of you may be aware of. It's essentially it's a tool that Google provides that if you control a website, it'll tell you essentially all of the search keywords that people were using to access that. So, like I said, here there was a big limited time game mode in old school RuneScape that sort of roughly doubled the amount of traffic. But the more interesting part is you can really drill down on any sort of search query. Like anyone have a suggestion for something we could look up that seems vaguely interesting? I mean, I guess what we could do is look up Weird Gloop again. Not that that's really the best indicator of anything related to Anything. Yeah, that's really not very good. Let's try something I think it kind of, we can do sailing. Yeah, let's do sailing OSRS. So that'll give you a sense of, like, what happened over time and whether anyone still cares about sailing. The answer? No one cares about sailing anymore. Which I say that kind of as a joke, but also that's like a fairly good indicator of what you should care about. Like, if you're trying to just maximize the amount of good that happens in, on the wiki, I would say it's generally good to focus on things that are actively popular. So if you look at the last 7 days or something of okay, this is gonna take a sec because this isn't a very good isn't a very good thing. Another good example is like OSRS DPS calc. So this is a calculator for the amount of damage per second that you take, or excuse me, that you usually that you dish out, um, in the game against various monsters with certain setups and things. And so we do now have a calculator for this, but even before that, we were thinking about, is this something that is worth us making? Because we were pretty confident that if we made a tool for this, then it would become sort of dominant. And as you can tell, at least from Google's perspective, with a 65% click through rate and an average position of 1, it is indeed kind of dominant. But zooming out further, you can try and figure out, okay, are there like bumps, uh, periods where people use this more than they normally would? This eventually loads, and the answer is yes. It turns out, when there's a limited time game mode, a lot of people want to use the DPS calculator. You can see various spikes around here, and there's just a lot of things like that where if you have access to this data, even if you're not fighting fandom, even if you are completely in control of the one wiki that people use, it's still really useful data. And if you are fighting fandom, then it's even more useful because, you can figure out all sorts of wonderful things about where you're showing up, where you're not showing up, etc. So that's Google Search Console. So someone asked, how do we deal with this data being a bit skewed because the wiki doesn't appear for search queries where it doesn't have the information? Yeah, so this is tough. It's not the easiest problem to solve. I would say there's a couple things you can sometimes do. One is using Google Trends, which um, Google Trends is one of my favorite websites of all time. But you can basically see this. I'm going to give you a stupid example to start with, but you can see how much does anyone care about Obama worldwide over the course of however long. And here it's like, okay, he gave a speech in 2004, and he won the nomination here, became president, got inaugurated. This one, anyone know? Oh wait, no. Anyone know what this one was? May 2011. Let me overlay it with something that is one letter different. It's that. It's when they got Bin Laden. but but you can use this for less geopolitical means if you want. You can, if you're trying to figure out a lot of things that we do when we're trying to figure out, do we want to host a wiki? What's kind of the end goal here? Um, you can try and figure out whether a game is popular. And something you might ask is, okay, how is like Undertale doing compared to Deltarune? And this tells you a lot of information about that. This is again not as granular as really drilling down on specifics. It really only gives you good data for things that get probably at least like a few hundred or 1,000 uh, queries over the course of a month or something. And so that's not always going to be applicable to everything that you do. And yeah, Google Trends is also, it doesn't give you actual like, so if we were to go back to the Google Search Console data, that does tell you the exact number of clicks and the number of impressions. And that's really useful. Google Trends is not that way. It is all kind of just like mushy relative numbers. So if it says that, Deltarune is at 100 and Undertale is at 38. That does mean that there's, a factor of, let's say, 2.5 difference between those, but it doesn't tell you what the underlying metrics are. But what's an example of, so something we were looking at when we were looking at hosting Subnautica wiki, which spoiler alert, we are now doing. Something we looked at was, okay, what is the holy crap, that is crazy. Okay, that's funny. So if you go from, it is search volume, but it's like it's all relative. Um, so yeah, Subnautica, we had like a rough idea of the traffic for um for the Subnautica wiki on fandom before a certain point, and we also knew kind of how it was doing um now and how it was doing. So you could say, okay, normally it's at like a 9 or a 10 or something, and the peak before that was like a 27 or a, what is it, like a 30. Um, so of course this ended up not being very useful because the Subnautica 2 just kind of completely beat the crap out of all the previous numbers. But this is the sort of thing that even if you have no information about the results, you can still get sort of generic information. So it's not perfect. Like if we were to, I'm sure if we do like something like sailing OSRS, we still get some decent. Like this is basically going to be the same shape as what we saw before for sailing. Um, and as you get kind of more into more obscure things like tribal totem OSRS, is that going to have enough data to stick around forever? And even that isn't quite there. So it's not perfect. It's very good for really high volume stuff, but if you don't have anything on Google Search Console, then that's kind of your next best option, I would say. Okay, so that's uh, thing number three. That's thing number two. Thing number three is something that is, I think, a little bit harder to demonstrate, but a lot of times, people will put together sidebars on the wiki, and they'll just kind of throw whatever stuff they think might be relevant there, and they'll usually kind of overdo it with project pages and policy pages and all this kind of stuff. And I always wondered, what happens if we just kind of track which of those people are clicking? What if we, if you go to, uh, you know, here or something, we just had data about which of these things people actually clicked, with the idea that, maybe if there's ones that people aren't clicking, it's a sign we should remove them. I have a pretty strong opinion about sidebar links, navbox links, all these sorts of things, where reducing the total number of things there often increases the total amount of clicks. Like it probably doesn't feel like a lot for us because we're used to a bunch of stuff. We know what all these things mean, and we have these sections about community and whatever else. But there's a lot of crap here. This is a lot of links for someone who, if they're using it at all, they're probably going to one of these like 8 or 9 things. And I don't think anyone is really clicking these more RuneScape links. I don't really think that many people are clicking to the policies. But again, this is a thing you don't have to guess on. You can actually just track it if you really want to. And so we actually did that. I'm not going to be able to show it very easily without switching a tab, but we have, over the course of I think about 4 years, we have 50 million sidebar clicks tracked between RuneScape, Old School, and I think that's about it. Actually, we're not doing it on Minecraft or anything, but this sort of thing is just super useful. It takes very very little effort to go MediaWiki gadget sidebar tracking. Really not that complicated. it's an on click, and then we do something based on that, send off some data to Chisel, and then it ends up in a database somewhere. And you can use this to figure out, are we doing too much? Are we doing, this is a silly example, but like, are we doing too much in, uh, someone asks, are those GA events not on their own? We don't use Google Analytics. I think um, you could certainly emit events for that if they don't currently exist. But yeah, similar question of like, are we overdoing it with nav boxes? Short answer is everyone is overdoing it with nav boxes. If you have 3 of these and 2 of them or 3 of them are collapsed, no one is gonna click any of these. It is just not a thing that really happens, to be honest. Um, so yeah, that's kind of an example of ad hoc tracking. It's not really specific to the sidebar or the nav box. It's just if there's anything you wanna figure out more information about, user behavior in order to make the wiki better, then it's usually not that hard to emit some sort of events for that. Something like that I would like us to do more of that we aren't currently is more information about what causes people to maybe not submit feedback. Someone asked, do nav boxes benefit search engines? I can answer that definitively. The answer is no. Uh, if you use the default MediaWiki mobile uh, mobile front end, which actually strips nav boxes, and Google at least only grabs the mobile page. So it essentially doesn't even exist as far as Google is concerned. I will say that we noticed that and did something different for RuneScape. So if you go to mobile view here, what? Oh, they are gone? No, okay, they collapsed. Yeah, so we do a couple things that try and make them a little bit less crappy. And we do something I think even different on, gonna make it really small? No. Okay, maybe we don't do that anymore. But yeah, nav boxes essentially don't exist for Google. Okay, so that's that. Last two things are things I've already talked about in the previous Yap session, but Search Digest is another phenomenal. I am on mobile view again. That's great. Is there not a whatever? This will work for now. You know, these are all really strong indicators of things that people want, right? You know, everything here is either a page or a redirect or something. Even the ones that are 500 down have been searched like 68 times. You know, if someone is saying upset the sandwich lady, I'm assuming that's, is that like a task for one of the, yeah, it's a, was it called desktop? Oh, it is just right there. I was looking for the word mobile. I don't know why. I'm pretty good at this. So Search Digest is just another phenomenal example of things where you can get ideas for what should be on the wiki. And like literally everything here is something where the wiki isn't nearly good enough. Everyone slobbers about how great OSRS wiki is, but these are all things that literally anyone could do to make it better, and it just hasn't yet happened. And the last thing on this sort of list of things to get, why am I searching that? List of things, we're gonna go back here, is article feedback. I already showed this before, but I'm talking about it this time less as an editor funnel and more as just a way to get information about what is wrong with the wiki. And the point I want to make like really clearly here is uh, I see a lot of times people edit thing or people respond to feedback on the wiki. Uh, like editors see readers misunderstanding something or just maybe not quite getting it. And it's really common for the editors to be like, you know, you screwed up. This is your fault. And I think you have to understand that anytime your position on something related to the wiki boils down to the readers should just be smarter, that's a sign that the wiki could be better. And anytime you get feedback, this is a cognitive bias that I think wiki editors have, and I wish they didn't. Anytime you get feedback, you have to assume that because it's so hard to jump through the hoops to leave the feedback, or make yourself known, you should generally assume that for every one person that is finally reaching you in Discord or complaining on Reddit or anything, that there's about 50 people who also feel the same way and haven't jumped through all those hoops. And so this means you actually should take criticism from the readers that do make themselves known to you probably more seriously than you do criticism from editors, because the editors already know how to make the pathway to get their feedback to you. The readers, by virtue of having not the level of experience that you do with how the wiki works, are generally going to be representative of a much larger group of people. And I really want everyone to get that through their heads, because it'll completely invert how you think about feedback from readers. You need to treat it as more important, not less important than the feedback from existing people. And honestly, something that I think people should realize is that the median user generally wants far simpler things and knows a lot less both about the game and about the wiki than wiki editors. And wiki editors as a group are consistently terrible, terrible at understanding that they are not the average person for this. So you really need to meet the readers where they are. You're generally just not going to get them to change fundamental behavior all over the place. You need to meet them where they are and just do a really good job at making something good for them. One other area that I would like to talk good feldspar, thank you. One other area that I want to talk about is reader surveys. And so this is something that I've seen various wikis do over time. Sometimes it's on like Google Forms, sometimes it's like a specific question on Reddit. And I have some decently strong opinions about how to do this. I would say that most of the time that people do surveys like this, including like us, like RuneScape historically, uh, the the surveys have not been very good. They've been very general. They've been like, here's like 10 areas of interest on the wiki, and we want you to rate all of them. And I think the question I have is, what are you going to do with that information? You know, if it turns out one of these areas is worse than the other, is that because it's actually, like, gotten less effort, or is it something that people are just more discerning about? Something like, so, for example, on old school RuneScape, we have money-making guides, which are extraordinarily popular, uh, but they're things that people will have more opinions on than something like an item page. It's really hard for an item page to be, like, half good. An item page has a very limited scope, and there's only so many things it can do. A money making guide can have all sorts of opinions baked into it. It needs to make recommendations. It's just harder, and as a result, the money making guides actually rate fairly low in sort of whenever we do this sort of survey, in a way that item pages or quest pages or things that are not risky don't. And so a naive interpretation of that would be, oh, we need to spend more time on making the money making guides good. And the reality is that they probably had more time devoted to them than any other piece of content we have on the wiki. So what that means is anytime you are doing this kind of generic survey, you need to really figure out what you're doing. Like, what are you going to do? You need to think through, okay, what would be surprising? What information here would be surprising to me, and what would I do with it based on that? I like trying to make it so that every question you ask is actionable. So an example here is, let's make this bigger. Example here is, I guess this was 3 years ago. We were looking at changing the way that a certain statistic was displayed on the wiki. And, I could get feedback from the editors and they all liked it, and I could get feedback from kind of the higher level people. But the thing I needed to do was kinda ask random people, and this is an area where Reddit actually excels. You just go there, you lay out the situation roughly to the same level of complexity that you would when you're talking to editors, and just see what comes out. And it turns out when we went and did this, the feedback was pretty negative, and we ended up not making this change. But the point is, this is a really good example of something that is actionable and has, a purpose to it. So that's that's I think that's about it. I do wanna make one other point, which is not really on here, but a lot of times when people push back against the idea that, you know, wikis should be sort of optimized for readers, it'll be things like, "Oh, we don't wanna split these pages. Um, we wanna keep everything that is of a certain type on this one page, even though it's bad for readers." An example of this would be like, I mean, it happens all over the place. It happens on uh, Minecraft Wiki. It happens on like Grand Theft Auto. It's a bunch of places where you'll have. Let's go here. Do they still have it this way? I don't know. I'm really putting these guys on blast for no good reason. Okay, they did actually change this one a bit, but something like oh, well, what's the log one that is all logs? There we go. Yeah. So this is an example of a page that is kind of trying to do about 12 things at once. And the reason it's as complicated as it is because it's actually covering all of these different things that are actually like distinct. The way you get spruce logs is not the same way that you get dark oak logs. They are in some ways broadly similar, but not enough to, from my perspective, have it make sense for a reader to end up here. And there's all this stuff where it's essentially just a bunch of switch cases um, between which type of log it is. And I think I think it's hard to argue against the idea that splitting these is better for readers. The argument that always comes up is that it would be too much of a maintenance burden to to split them. To have these pages where, 60 or 70% of the content is identical. And I honestly hate that argument. I really hate that argument because if you go back to last week, what I was saying is having fodder that is kind of like mechanical stuff for like medium tier editors to mess around with and split and keep up to date. So this maintenance stuff is actually it's actually a good problem to have. It's not a bad problem to have. It's the more kind of distinct things you have like that that can kind of be grouped into projects and tasks and things, of which anything related to page splitting or keeping things mechanically up to date, all of these are great examples of that. And I think this is true not just for Minecraft, it's also true for Grand Theft Auto, where they're thinking about, okay, we historically have, is that here? Historically, something like a fire truck, which they've done a better job of it now than it was before, um, where they sort of have somewhat distinct information about each of these pages, or excuse me, each of these fire trucks, um, based on whether it's which game it's from, whether it's from GTA 5 or 4 or something else, and it, it it still has kind of the same problem that the Minecraft logs does, where there's so many examples of just switch statements throughout all of this. Here's a switch statement. Here's trivia for specifically for V. Here's a switch statement on the the model, yada yada yada. Um, the point of this isn't to like rag on them specifically. It's just to say that first of all, this is a phenomenal question to just go ask people about. If you talk to the Grand Theft Auto wiki admins, they will tell you that this sort of categorization of HD universe, 3D universe, 2D universe is something that like just about everyone who plays Grand Theft Auto knows about and understands. And this is mostly relevant because the actual name of the page in well, one of these pages, it's kind of hard to tell, but like one of these pages is actually split. And the URL here, I don't know if you can even see that, but the URL is Firetruck 3D Universe. And so a question you might ask is, are we assuming too much of the readers? You know, do the readers actually consistently know what what that is? Do they know what that distinction is? Do they know how to find the relevant information they're looking for given the way that you designed this? And my guess, as someone who is not super duper deep in Grand Theft Auto, but has certainly played San Andreas and 4 and like a bit of 5 and has never heard of any of these universe things. My guess is that this is an example of massively overestimating the awareness level of your average reader. And if they were to go and do a little Reddit post like this to figure out what people actually thought, the opinions would be very, very clear. And I really just urge all of you guys to not make assumptions about what the readers know, because by virtue of being, you know, an admin on the Vampire Survivors wiki or the League of Legends wiki or the Minecraft wiki or anything like this, you are just by definition in like the 99.9th percentile of giving a shit about that game, and you have been super deep in it for a very, very long time, and you are going to make a better wiki if you understand that that is true. So that's I think that's about all I have for this. This was a shorter. Oh, I do have one more slide, which is basically just like your policies should be based on what is good for readers. And it should be a description of what's generally worked, not some like super rigid, we're going to prescribe exactly how this should be done. And you should be willing to change your policies if they're bad for people. And I think if you look at how you do things through this lens, another example would be like Minecraft Wiki historically just would not have articles for, I'm going to get this slightly wrong, but they had a very strict future content policy where things that were not yet released for some definition of release that I can't quite remember, uh, even if they were like wildly of interest to the community at large, they would not be able to. It wouldn't be allowed to have a page for this, even though it's clearly something people were looking for. People would be creating the pages, the admins would go delete them, and I think this is like it's an understandable policy, but I think it's also if you look at things from the perspective of like, is there a way we can present this that is reasonable and gives the readers the thing they're looking for? I think the answer is first of all, yes, there definitely is a way to do that. And then as a corollary, your policy is probably not very good. So that's about all I have on that. Just please be pragmatic about understanding what the readers want. And if you have any questions that um, you think could be answered with more measurement data, I'm very, very interested in helping people figure those things out. The more we have examples of places where wiki admins and wiki editors were able to make better decisions by being a little bit empathetic and uh, measuring what they can about what the readers actually want. The more we have explicit examples of this, the more I think the the point of this talk will be more widely understood. So that's that. Um, I think I'm gonna end it here. One thing I saw in the chat, I think, was someone talking about how, um, the I think it was on the logs page on Minecraft has just a ton of, sort of like granular formulaic data, right? I didn't see who it was who actually. Yeah, it's a lot of technical data. And this is a it's a hard trade-off, right? Like, is it not that you necessarily wanna go purely on, like, what percentage of the page this is, but this table right here is, like, 8% of this log page, and it's honestly probably more for some of the other ones, and you have to figure out, like, is this useful? Is this something that readers actually want? For what percentage of people is this useful, and for what percentage of people is it just a complete waste of space that they need to move past? Oh, there's even more. Right, right, right. Yeah, there's the item, there's the data values, there's all this kind of stuff where you kind of need to make the trade-off between what is good for readers and sort of this related but not quite identical question of how do you cover everything on the wiki. And this is not unique to Minecraft by any means. I'll give you another example where Supreme. So, oh, we don't even have. Where is this going to be? Remember this? Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of an inside baseball example, but historically on old school RuneScape wiki, we this is just a popular boss on in the game, Dagonoth Supreme, and you may notice there's a little tab on the info box that says PVM Arena, and it doesn't really change the stats. It doesn't really do anything, and so people for a while the most common search term on Search Digest was PVM Arena because people were like, "What the hell is this?" Right? Like, this is not a I get no information about this. It is something that is technically correct. If you dig into the internals of how the game works, there is a second version of the Dagonoth Supreme with a different monster ID that does have this value, and it's something that we should cover. And over time, we did eventually cover it, uh, on a completely different page that is given the level of importance it actually deserves, which is to say it's really not important at all. It's not something anyone should care about. It's about this like clan arena thing that existed for a short time, like 11 years ago, and it's not really eh, it's not linked from the Dagonoth Supreme page, and honestly, it shouldn't because it's such a stupid thing that is really confusing to people who the 99.99, I could add more nines percent of people that are looking at this and want to see the thing that they can normally kill. So my kind of thought process on this is that it is quite possible to serve both of these audiences at the same time. You can serve the people, the 99 point whatever percent that are actually just playing the game and are roughly the median people. And you can also serve the people that want really really granular completionist, we have to have a page for every monster ID in the game. But what you need to do is make sure that those don't mix. If you have places where being granular means that you make the normal page that everyone wants to use worse, then the answer is to either not be granular or to find a different way. In this case, splitting the page uh, of presenting that, because it's not hard to tell. Like, when I tell it to you this way, it's very obvious that this PVM arena thing is confusing and shouldn't be on the page. But I promise you, every one of you has like a dozen things like this on your wiki that are in that same category. And it's just kind of up to you to figure out how to balance between granularity and what's actually useful for the median person. I don't know the exact solution that I would recommend for like the sounds and the data values and stuff. I would say the current way of doing things is definitely like deeply suboptimal for Minecraft, but I I don't know exactly what the solution is that I'd recommend. And honestly, the first thing I do is just like let's split them and deal with the other problems later. So that's the yap. That's the my part of the yap. The rest of this is everyone else's part of the yap. So thank you. I am going to stop sharing, unmute this, and see if anyone wants to talk, and hopefully keep the conversation kind of roughly on this topic of like how do you make things good for readers. Anyone want to talk? I don't see any. This was being recorded in full? I believe so. Yeah, what if I open the VOD on the VOD? Okay. Hello, welcome.
Hi. I guess I'll get the. Uh, I think my first tracking. I click the sidebar. Um, how public do admins have a large big stack? Might be beneficial to have. That's more.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of tough. I think this is always a trade-off. And it's true for like any sort of stats, not just like kind of reader behavior stats, but you may remember there's a period of time where we also had a lot of like the CPU statistics for like weird gloops cluster super public, and decided that was actually eventually not the right thing to do. I would I would say in general, I lean towards a posture of keep it close to the chest and fairly private um, in general, but widely share the insights with everyone. And if there's someone who seems like they are interested in actually doing some analysis based on this, I think it's totally reasonable to sort of open it up at the first indication that someone is going to do something useful with it. But I tend to prefer that to be on a per person basis rather than everyone basis, just because I think a surprisingly large percentage of the times that I've been involved with some sort of controversy have been because we kept like analytic stats more public than they should have been. Um, it can create, especially like in the immediate aftermath of a fork, it's common for, the first month or two for people to be really, really interested in like, are we beating fandom yet? Are we beating fandom yet? Blah, 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 blah. And that if they get any indication initially that that's not how it should be, or that, they're not winning, then that can be really demoralizing, even though a lot of times they're misreading the data. A lot of times it's like that's gonna happen anyway. Um, I think you can get caught in this trap of anytime that analytics data is not quite doing what you think it should be, either because of bots or something else, um, it can be a huge waste of time, honestly, to the number of special contact messages we've gotten over the last couple of years just from the admins being like, "Why is this page so high?" And the answer is almost always like, "There's some stupid bot that's doing something stupid with it." Um, eh, And I think the more public you make this sort of stuff, the more time you spend on kind of not super relevant things, and also the you create risks that you probably aren't thinking about initially. But at the same time, if they're specific people, like, I think there's a lot to be gained from exposing it.
Minecraft that search public and into stating, yeah, this can be okay. I guess my
Oh, continue. I will add to it afterwards.
because I have a maintenance of a wiki
Mhm.
kind of community as a whole has changed its stance. There's like a lot. Yeah, it should be as easy as just edit pages and rather than what do readers actually. How do you?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the easiest thing. It's something that there's a lot of fierce resistance to. And of course, that means you don't shove it down people's throats. You kind of just win them over over time. I think I think the thing that I've had the most success with is trying to get them to really lay out, like, not in hypotheticals, but in really practical, specific things, what is actually gonna get harder by doing this. Because I think it's something that is the idea of, like, maintenance burden is it's more of a boogeyman than it is a real thing that actually causes problems. And from my perspective, it's always about, okay, when there's a new update, which again happens like, how many things a year are affecting the logs page? It's not that many, right? You start doing the math on, like,
Every second drop,
yeah. Yeah.
or
Uh,
twice a year.
yeah. Um, but, like, you start doing the math on what is actually required to keep this up to date, and I've yet to see a scenario where the ongoing maintenance burden is outrageously high. And I think once you kinda get them to, like, lay down, how often does this happen? What is the thing? And usually it's like, you need to add one new template or, like, change one line, or it's really not it's really not that much. And so that's an area where I think specificity gets you a long way. I'm just in a general sense, I'm not a fan of sort of pearl clutching about hypotheticals in the abstract. I'm very interested in talking about hypotheticals in sort of a concrete sense. But if the conversation ends at this is going to be more work, without trying to think of, okay, what is that work? Are there other things we could do, like to arrange things? Sometimes the answer is you can use Bucket or something, or SMW or whatever you have access to to solve this problem a different way. Um, and so that's kind of my not so short answer is it's not an immediate thing. Try and get into practical specifics as early as possible in the conversation. And also just like try and win more people over to the idea that in general, like the more you can find areas where doing things that are good for readers doesn't require a huge amount of effort from the editors, I think it becomes easier for that to become sort of like the dominant philosophy that we do. That yes, optimizing for readers is important. So the next time it comes up is a question of do we want to split these pages, or And by the way, it's not splitting is like a really obvious example of this, but there's many other examples. The next time that comes up, there will be more people that are like, "Yeah, actually, this was really good that we are thinking more about readers than we were before."
In my opinion, the reasoning behind too much work when splitting pages, it's it's not something that works for a wiki the size of the English Minecraft wiki. Like, I can understand that argument at least partially for a smaller wiki with very limited amount of editors, but a wiki the size of the English Minecraft wiki, there are enough editors to do all that work. And if not, it's a great way to get new editors, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason that I get that I'm not gonna get everyone to agree with my philosophy that having an incomplete wiki is the best way to build the community, but it absolutely is. And if you believe that even a little bit, then you can start to see that like, okay, yes, having this work to be done, this thing that needs to get added to 15 pages, or this thing that needs to get split, um, it all kind of is a catalyst for the community growing. Yeah, and Momo has a pretty good point, which is that if the concern is, okay, next time there's an update, this page is going to be out of date because normally we had to only update one page and now we have to update 15 with, I don't know, this new the armadillo that just came out in Minecraft eats logs and we need to put that on every page or something. You can tell I played a lot of Minecraft since 2011. Um, the you know, the absolute best thing you can do for getting people interested in contributing is to give them something to do that is in relation to a new update, right? Like that feels even better than, okay, this thing is just bad and missing stuff, or this is like vandalized. If it's actually just in relation to something that is happening that they're playing for the first time, then that's just an absolute winner. There's a reason that I think probably half the people on RuneScape Wiki that ended up being kind of important. Their first edit was, the day of some big update. You can actually really just go piece by piece and find where that happened. And the more you can create opportunities for new people to do that in really simple ways, where by the way, it's actually probably a lot easier to update one single, update like the spruce log page with this information than it would be for the general page.
Oh yeah,
Not
absolutely.
like on
And
in terms of like, is it possible for some random person to
ye
do that?
yeah, especially because on the Minecraft wiki, with Minecraft has a lot of development versions released before an update. So we basically have all the details about what's coming and have added it to the page with the related text like upcoming with this drop and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So we have a lot of time to integrate the new information. And then when the update releases, we have a lot of stuff to edit to just remove the notices for the new content and delete the ones with the old update notice. And that's something that's already being done by a lot of new editors. It's really simple. You edit the page, you delete the sentence with the notice until update XYZ, and delete the notice, edit with update XYZ, and you are done. It's a very simple edit. Everyone can do. A lot of new editors already coming this way, uh, doing new updates, and having that on more pages won't be much more work because we have a lot of time to add that during the snapshots.
Yeah, I mean, that is totally consistent with kinda my worldview, so I'm happy that that's kinda what you're seeing in practice. Judy, you wanna yap?
Yeah, sure. So, I just wanted to mention that on League of Legends Wiki, there's kind of like a couple examples of where um, we have like things to improve on and also things that have worked. So, League of Legends has a ton of pages relative to the number of like power editors, like frequent editors. Like most of our patch notes are usually done by like one or two guys. Um, Occasionally, some people that join will be interested in updating the patch notes, which is like really nice to see because most of it is um, most of that process is like kind of manual, and there's always like mistakes that maybe the developers make, and then we add in like extra notes, or like there's things that we missed, and then some people will just point them out. That's like one example of how like manual editing is like leaving manual processes in place is good for bringing in new editors. Um, the reason I bring up patch notes workflow specifically for this talk is that the the readers from the reader's perspective, it's good to keep all the pages separate. So each change that appears in patch notes will first get put on a patch notes page, and then people, well, editors usually manually copy those changes to the relevant pages. So if a champion changes in one patch note, that change will get propagated to the ability, like ability history. Um,
Mhm.
Most of that is manual, but it serves the purpose of like we split up details into the place where the readers would expect to find it.
Yeah.
And like that's like a lot of work actually because sometimes the patch notes are spread across a lot of champions. But what you'll find is that it's usually easier to optimize after it's better to optimize for readers first and then to optimize for editor experience later because you can more easily update like editors. So like some of our editors have like requested like mass page update tools or like tools that will basically take a patch note page and then like split it up to sections they can easily like or even automatically push to other pages. But then the manual workflow is still there if you need to make changes. So um, like one thing that would be cool to do, like a future thing that we should be doing on League of Legends Wiki is that item pages right now are like completely automated. Um, and what I mean is like they're just like one giant Lua module. There's that retrieves data from Lua page and then just spits out the item pages um, as like one template call. And
Yeah.
these like mega pages are not great for editors, and they're not really great for readers either because there's not as much like granularity that's added to each page because it's harder. And so like if they looked like regular pages with more item specific details with fewer templates, it would probably be better overall. And then we can figure out how to kind of like make it easier for the editor later. Like there's plenty of ways we can make tools or like um, centralize the data in a way that's still accessible by new readers. All the back end stuff is usually easier to do um, after you've optimized for. Like it's very hard to optimize for readers after you've optimized for editors. I will say that especially with uh, Legends Wiki, we usually start out with the opposite, and we need to like kind of force the flip to optimize for readers instead of editors, because we start out with few editors. Putting so much content all at once, for example, for a new game, usually requires like really complicated templates, and then we think about how to flip the workflow later. Um, so I will say it's not easy to do, but it is something that is worth considering.
Yeah, I like the thought process basically that the editors, there's a lot of the aspects of this that basically sound like they could be solved by someone writing a good, gadget or like some JavaScript or something that automates part of the editor workflow. And it's hard to imagine there being like some trivial, technical intervention that you can do of a similar nature that makes the pages good for readers, right? So yeah, I like the thought process basically that editors will be willing to like there's things you can do to optimize their workflow in a way you can't do it for readers. So that does create a pretty strong argument that what you want to do is figure out the best thing for readers and then go from there. Because at least in my experience, the thing that's best for readers often, not always, but often leads to good design. Simple design, fewer of the like megalithic no, that's the wrong word, monolithic templates and like Lua modules and things. I'm with you, man. I can't stand like the the pages where the source of truth is like a 2 megabyte Lua module.
Well, so it depends, because if you're the only editor for all these pages, sometimes it's helpful to have them all in the same place as an editor, but as a reader, it doesn't make sense to read that page.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also if you keep it that way, you're guaranteeing that you will be the only editor for it forever.
Right,
Um,
right.
Like we don't on like RuneScape, we don't have too many like giant Lua modules that people are meant to be editing, but we have enough like that are kind of abstracted away, and like an absurdly high percentage of the questions that people ask are, how do I fix this thing? Yeah, maybe it was linked from what you wanted, but that's just not like sufficient, I would say, like almost ever. And yeah, I don't know. It's hard because the more you optimize for the one person that is doing it right now, the more you pretty much just guarantee that they will be the only person that ever does it. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things like that that feel like they could be more. Feels like there could be better like technical interventions to solve a lot of those problems, and it's just like we have to think about what they are. Okay. Anyone else wanna chat a little bit? Any yappers? Incredible. We came in like almost 2 hours under under the first
So
one.
there's also something that I think is a good example um, for that happened with 2xKO wiki. Um, in the early days of the 2xKO wiki, people, well, I was arguing with a new editor over whether we should include uh, beginner-friendly symbols that are relevant in the game versus like fighting game notation. And I found that like the I was a proponent of adding more symbols to help new players, but they were a proponent of adding notation, and ultimately I just left them to do it their way, just so that like they could contribute in a way that felt like like I'm just gonna let them do what they're gonna do. I'll figure out how to get the best of both worlds later. That's kind of how I've been thinking about new editor feedback. It's like even if it sounds terrible right now, sometimes it can be better to just consider it and let it happen, or like first like try it out and then kind of uh, remediate the negative effects of it later. So like we ended up putting like notation everywhere.
Yeah.
But like we still put symbols in like beginner sections.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
so like
that makes sense. And I remember that conversation when it was happening. I think the high level point I would make there is it is often people get like lured into kind of a false dichotomy there where they think, okay, the only two options are we either do it like completely beginner friendly or we do stuff that is like FGC. And usually, but not always, there's like some way to kind of make them both work. And if for
right.
some reason there really, really isn't, um, it's a place to gather feedback.
Sure, sure. Well, I would argue it's usually that dichotomy exists because people don't think that it is possible,
Mhm.
and you might need more technical like intervention to make it possible. But usually it can be done. Like League of Legends ability pages are a good example of like we were able to show a abbreviated. We actually have 3 tiers of like simplicity for our ability description.
Yeah.
Because we're like there's always like the people who are like hardcore champion mains. They'll have all these details to put in the detail section.
Mhm.
But like there's always going to be new people that don't care about any of that and just want what the ability does.
Yeah.
Um, and so we separated out like 3 different versions of the abilities. Um, you'll see two on each ability when you go to the abilities page, but there's actually like a third one, which is like when you hover over like a link to an ability.
Oh yeah, I know the one. Yeah.
Yeah, we have like a blurb in the data that will show like an even shorter version. So it's like if you just hover over
Yeah.
ability on a different page,
I know
it'll
it.
show like an even shorter ability.
Yeah. I know it well. Yeah. No, that's a very good point. I want to talk about something Marcus just said about, readers clearly want community content like Omni Archive documented on the wiki. Hopefully we can allow that soon. Like there's a lot of things like that where I personally lean pretty hard towards let's have the wiki cover everything that could reasonably be mentioned here. You can put whatever requirements you want on it. Like for example, the thing about future content. Pretty much every wiki over time has had its fits over what to do with stuff that isn't very obviously part of the current game.
Yeah, Minecraft Wiki has been quite careful here in what to allow due to the issues of having allowed too much in the past.
Yeah.
Like Minecraft started small and then came a few mods and they got documented on the wiki, obviously, because everything Minecraft got documented. And then Minecraft got huge. And now we had a bunch of very small mod pages and
Mhm.
old mod pages and large mod pages, and they got outdated even faster than everything else. And versioning, and I think you know the whole talk about Minecraft and mods and
Yes.
all the issues there are with making it work properly.
It's an incredibly hard problem.
And
Yeah.
basically, it ended up that we don't document mods in the Minecraft wiki, and that's like the same issue with general community content. Like, what's the notability to allow stuff that's big enough, but not to allow stuff that's just the trend of the week or every small thing. Like even the only document stuff that's actually in development versions and not just the announced stuff happened because in the early days the Minecraft devs and Notch said a lot about stuff that yeah, this would be nice to add, this would be great to add, and 20 years later they never got added.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I think that to me is a more reasonable class of things to just include. Because, I think it's not that hard to say this was a thing that Notch talked about one time in 2010. Here's the relevant information we have about it. It's probably not going to come to the game, right? Like to me, that is the full set of the useful stuff you can say about it. And there's
Yeah,
no part of that that is saying like, we know this is going to be in the game, but it's useful stuff to document. I think
yeah.
like
But
deleting it doesn't make any
basically,
sense.
yeah. When we started up allowing after the fork, allowing the stuff more easily, we basically went with everything that's announced for a specific update. So basically, we know when this is going to come.
Yeah.
That gets its completely own page. Everything else that has been mentioned or announced that goes on the ginormous mentioned features page,
Yeah.
which isn't really exactly great either, but still better than having nothing at all.
Yeah, I mean, I always found the whole like, we don't feel comfortable having this thing as an article, so we'll just have it as a section on a page. Like that never really made that much sense to me because I think if you're going to cover it at all, it might as well like it is a distinct entity. It's not like making it any less important by
Yeah, I
having it
think
on a page.
we went so far that mentioned features is allowed to have subpages for this stuff. So like the Red Wagon is like the most easy example.
Yeah.
Let me link it in the chat. It's like something that was talked about a lot in details and then really never happened.
Yeah.
Like Minecon 2010.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think this is a totally fine page, and I think even if it was only like 2 quotes and that was all we knew about it, I would still say that should have a page. Like, I honestly I don't see the amount I guess I'm just generally very inclusionary on what sort of content the wiki
Yeah,
should
it gets
have.
a bit more and confusing if you look like at the mentioned features page, which is very, very long. Like so long it's not really usable anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the hard part there is maybe giving it, like, a defined name is hard.
Yeah, and it's basically again the issue we have on the Minecraft wiki a lot, which is notability.
Yeah, but I don't know. I
Which
feel like
is enough, which isn't like, yeah, I understand you are fine with small pages, but some of these are literally a Twitter comment that, yeah, reindeers sound fun
yeah,
by a dev, and that's not really a useful page. That's honestly that's not really useful on the mentioned features page
yeah.
either. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Also, yeah, Minecraft wiki notability. It's a guideline. It's not directly part of the hard rules, so it's something that we can have exceptions to, but it
yeah, I think
never really happens because the community is too much, but it doesn't fit notability.
yeah, I don't know. Notability is one of those things where I would guess, not having looked at the policy, but I would guess that has mostly been in place for quite a while, and I don't know, this kinda goes back to, like, be pragmatic. Like, look at everything case by case. Um, Trying to fit everything into, like, some super coherent, like, this is on the right side of the line versus the wrong side of the line, and trying to compare it to other existing things. All that to me is kind of it's kinda stupid wiki lawyering. Like, it's the first and last question should be, "Are the readers gonna be better off if we have this?" And putting in a a policy kind of in between that where we try and figure out not the answer to that important question, but the answer to the less important question of how does this fit compared to the other precedents that we have on the wiki, it doesn't lead to productive conversation,
Yeah,
in my
like,
opinion.
I mean, we definitely need the notability because, as I mentioned, there's so much community content that it's hard to
Yeah.
limit it otherwise. And at the same time, we do have some exceptions. Honestly, I'm not exactly familiar with our current version of the notability guideline, so it might not actually be an exception anymore. But for quite a long time, the Herobrine article was basically against notability.
Wait, sorry, which
It's
article?
Herobrine.
Oh, I see, yeah.
I don't know how familiar you are
I know
with
I know it
Minecraft,
shows
but
up I know it shows up, like, all the time in, like, the most searched yeah. I
yeah,
don't really
it,
know
it,
why,
it's
but, like
like Herobrine got removed in like every second update, like for quite a long time, and basically every update removed Herobrine. It's
yeah.
it's like the one main Minecraft creepypasta. So yeah, but this
Yeah,
page
and
was originally added to the wiki because it got a lot of Herobrine vandalism. So one of the admins at the time created a Herobrine article, and suddenly also Herobrine vandalism stopped.
That's funny. Oh, sorry, Leafy was how do I do that? I do that from there. And there we go. You are now invited to speak.
Hey everybody, so this is going to be like a different topic from Minecraft and like notability rules, but more about special search digest. So on the Vampire Survivors wiki, we take like advantage of that page like a lot. Like it's kind of like a maintenance routine to use that page and to check up specific terms and then redirect them. And in some of the search terms over there. Uh, they're basically like strings or substrings of like secret character hints, for example. And we don't just redirect like the page to the page. We redirect to the unlocking section, for example. So, so for the special search digest terms, we make them specific sometimes. And surprisingly, like those hints, they're searched a lot on Google. So to make it more convenient on the wiki, like for the internal search, we just redirect to the specific section as well, and not just the page in general.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a good thing to do. I think it's one of those things that if you do the search digest stuff well enough, it's just what I've noticed from like just readers talking about it on like RuneScape wiki. It's basically just magic. They're like, how the fuck did they know that was what I was looking for? And that's a really cool feeling. And especially if you can redirect it to a section rather than something more specific. Does the no, that I was thinking that probably doesn't work. I was thinking about whether do redirects work for like the text highlights um API section, not sorry, picture section. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever tested that, but if there's
I
like
don't think
some
it
sort of
does.
broken wiki text syntax, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. That would be a funny one. Of course that's going to break anytime there's like a change in how it
Hey,
looks.
Cook, am I allowed to provide some feedback for the special search digest page?
Now I'm scared, but I guess so.
Sorry, I have spent like the majority of your Yap on the Minecraft Wiki search digest page,
Okay.
blocking basically all the non-English search digest results
Yeah.
because we have our search gadget for that. So we want them to stay on the search page.
Yeah.
Special search digest doesn't have a link to the search results for that term, which is like super annoying because you're like, this title is being searched and doesn't redirect anywhere. I
Yeah,
wonder what the search results for this term are.
I see, yeah. I could see it. Yeah,
That
so I
would
think
be really great to add.
yeah, I think honestly we probably just assumed that the like, it's baffling to me how bad special search is. Like, to be honest, I've never wanted that before, I think just because I assumed the results were so unbelievably useless, so as to uh, not make that effective.
Yeah, like just for me, it would have been really useful because to see if something was a non-English term, I basically
Yeah,
had to search it and see if the sidebar with the
yeah,
InterWiki search results
it's
showed
kinda
up.
rough. Yeah,
And I had to do that in a different tab,
yeah,
copy pasting every single
uh-huh,
search term.
yeah. It's good feedback. Oh, yeah, the, shitpost redirects are really fun.
Oh yeah, I did these too. On like the wikis I edit.
Yeah. The rule, of course, is they need to be funny. Like, they need to actually, because the problem is they've gotten sort of famous enough on, like, the old school RuneScape subreddit that other people try and make them, and they're not very good at it. So, it's the rule of cool. Anything is allowed if it's funny enough. Oh, Warframe as a
But
whole.
yeah, regarding like the search digest terms, so there's like a lot of misspellings, which is pretty normal, I should say. And I think it's really cool how like when you misspell sometimes, like in the future, like you misspell something and you just get the correct search term.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a it's yeah, it's just a cool thing that, like, even people screwing things up actually, like, in the long run helps other people. Okay. What Dude, Warframe Wiki should make a tier list. It'd be great. Okay, that's about all I have for the app. Anyone else have any final words? The sun is out, the sky is blue, beautiful, and so are you. No, nobody? Okay. All right. Let's see. Oh yeah, I need to say what the next week's Yap session is. The current plan is number 3 is going to be about working with your game developers and the larger community around you. And I know this is a topic that a lot of people are interested in, and hopefully we can add something useful. It turns out video game developers are people too. They're not gods, and they are normal ass people that you can talk to and be friends with and have some good things happen. So I think we're going to talk about that
I do
next
want to
week.
talk like one thing about it. So when I was talking to like one of the game devs, or actually specifically the community manager from Punkle, the devs of Vampire Survivors, I find it kind of cute how like they're new to wiki editing, which is kind of adorable to see,
Oh yeah, I
and
mean
like
they
how we just mentioned them.
yeah, I mean it works. Everyone has something they don't know. But yeah, I think honestly one of the biggest smart things that we ever did for RuneScape was uh just getting to be very good friends with a lot of the developers, and I think Minecraft could benefit from that. Honestly, I think even the other weird Gloop wikis could benefit from doing more of that. Like, we should probably be doing more interesting stuff with like League Wiki and Riot than we are. Cool. That is Yap number 2 in the books. Got it done in an hour and a half. Thanks everybody for coming. Hope you had a good time. If you have any feedback, comments, questions, etc., come talk to me, or you know where to find us. We're still here. Right? Is there like a correct way to end this? End stage.